Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of Colors of Autumn. In this second part, we're going to first of all continue with finishing off the buckeye or horse chestnut leaves. So we're going to assemble them, go on to make the beautiful autumn colors. Then we're going to move on to the conker or buckeye in the shell and the one out of the shell, and then finish off with assembly of that and then go on to the poppy seed head. So let's get started. So we tape the base of the leaf 20 millimeters or 3/4 of an inch using half width light green floral tape. So we take this technique we've done many times before. So just taking your floral tape, and normally I put them on a piece of fun foam or, for example, on a small towel, something that's soft. So we're going to start off, remember, start off approximately about 25 millimeters down the wire, go around with your half width tape. There we go, and then you're just going to slide this up to the bottom of the leaf, and you're just going to come down about 20 millimeters. All right, so you're just going to come in about 20 millimeters, about 3/4 of an inch, okay, and then break off and continue that with the large leaf as well. Slide that up, tape down, break off. All right, now we're going to assemble onto a 22 gauge wire, starting with the large leaf 5 millimeters down the stem. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a 22 gauge wire. This is for the assembly, and it doesn't matter if it's green or white. And what we're going to do is going to take this leaf and about 5 millimeters down the stem, we're going to attach the wire here. All right, so literally we're just about 5 millimeters down the stem, you start attaching. We're going to start off with green tape, and then we're going to change out to brown tape, because, you know, like a lot of trees have this, the stems are green as the leaves, and then of course when they meet they will become brown on the twig. All right, and then you're going to take the side leaves, and then we're going to bend the medium leaves 5 millimeters down the stem. All right, so you're going to take about 5 millimeters down the stem here, and I'm going to bend one to the left and one to the right. All right. So this would be like very similar to a Sheffula, which is a sort of house plant. So some tropical leaves are done like this as well. And we've used this technique on other foliage, like when we did the hellebore, the Lenten rose, we used that technique as well. So you see you have here about 5 millimeters of stem showing. And I'm going to go around with these leaves in place. You see there's about 5 millimeters of actual stem showing there. And then we're going to do the same, approximately 5 millimeters with the small leaves as well, okay? But they all want to come from that same point. So you're going to bring these up here, and these will come up. So you see they're all coming from that same central point. All right, and then you're going to go around with your floral tape, and that will sort of obviously make the thicker stem, which is what we want here. And then you're going to tape down about 5 millimeters. So you're going to tape down about 5 millimeters and then tape up and then down again. So you're going to go up, there you go, tape down, up, and then down. So that gives you the thickness there. Using your pliers or your fingers, you can then give that this sort of characteristic shape for the leaves. And then when we do there, then you're going to change to half width brown tape. Tape down half the length of the wire, down, then texture with scissors up and down. So we're going to break off the tape here now. And so then we're going to take with your brown. So we're going to go about half the length of the wire, which is going to be just past where the wires finish. All right. You're going to come up. Just be a little bit careful of the leaves because they're quite a little bit spiky. You know, not so much a problem with, like, for example, air drying clay or flexi paste, but if you're working with traditional flower paste, be careful of those spikes, all right? We don't need to tape all the way down because this will going to be all taped together. And you're going to get this nice sort of fan shape. And as I showed you, sometimes there will be 7 leaves. So, you know, you'd have a large, you could have 2 medium and a small, or you could have a large, a medium, and 2 small each side. So you do a sort of almost a 5 or 7, like a hand, okay? And then we're just going to texture this. So I'm going to just texture really where the brown meets, just going to texture that like we've done on quite a few projects, you know, like sort of like the dogwood and cherry blossom and things. And you can use a wire cutter or a pair of scissors for that. All right, next step is I'm going to get ready for the dusting. I'm going to show you how we color these. So for the leaves, we're going to use autumn gold color. This is a sort of obviously a beautiful color for the base. Now, as I showed in the introduction in part 1, when you're making obviously the chestnut leaves, the sweet chestnut, horse chestnut, buckeye leaves, of course you could do these in green if you were doing them in the springtime or in the summer on, say, a groom's cake. But in the autumn, have these beautiful colors. So I'm going to use this autumn gold as a base color. Now, if you don't have this particular, color, you can of course use some yellow and a little bit of brown and just oranges and just play around with this. Remember, there's going to be a sample of this on your actual download, so you'll be able to sort of match the color. Anyway, what we're going to do is going to brush this all over. I've already done 3 of the leaves, so I'm using a largish flat brush here. You see, this gives this really beautiful color. Of course, you could do this in more orange colors, but because in the arrangement we're going to be having Chinese lanterns that are orange, yellow and orange for the cosmos, we're going to have some of those sort of more orangey colors in other parts of the arrangement. So I'm really not adding any orange here, but you could do, like when we did the maple leaves, for example, you could do that. So anyway, so you're going to brush all over the leaves front and back with this base color, all right? And then that can go back into your container. You can change out your napkin. And next we're going to add some chocolate. This is obviously dark chocolate color, chocolate brown. So some chocolate. I'm going to use a flat brush. So like we would do with the roses and flowers like that, we're going to brush from the source away from the source, so from the outside. You see I'm going to bring that chocolate brown here on the edge. So you see how you really get that beautiful sort of color coming on the edge of the leaves. So this is going to be, of course you could put gloves on for this. Usually when I'm doing things personally, I put gloves on. It's a bit difficult to keep changing gloves out in camera, but put gloves on when you're doing this. And of course then you can add the chocolate brown here. So from the outside to the inside. All right, so we're going to do the brown on both sides of the leaves. I'm going to leave the brown because I need that a little later for some other projects, all right? And then we're going to take some moss green. So you could use a moss or a foliage, just sort of a darkish green color. Wouldn't use like a forest green, which is more of a bluey green we use for, say, the magnolia, but as I said, the moss, the foliage colors. Remember, if you're using different brands, they're a little dark, you can always add a little bit of cornflower, cornstarch to them as well. And then what we're going to do here, now this is going to give it just a little bit of life. So of course, when a leaf drops off the tree in the fall or autumn time, it obviously is going to have a little bit of color, and it's going to sort of obviously change color. But when it drops off, it's usually still going to have a little bit of green in it while it's actually attached to the tree. When it detaches from the tree and actually falls off the tree, of course, very soon it's going to lose that sort of greenness. But I just put a little bit of green, so it just gives it a little bit of life. So I'm using a flat brush here and just cutting in. So I'm going about halfway down the leaf, both sides, with a little bit of the green. So this just gives a little bit of life to it, but if you wanted it totally dried looking, you could of course do that without any green in it. Okay, now also of course, when a leaf is at this stage in this color palette, which we again have discussed before in other sort of autumn projects, it doesn't really have any natural luster, meaning you wouldn't use glaze on this, because if you use glaze or lacquer, it will make it too shiny. So what we're going to do is just going to give it a really good steam. And of course, with if you're doing this in air drying clay, you give it a really good spray with hairspray, so give it a spray of hairspray, but gentle spray. And then remember, you can always come back and do another spray, but don't saturate it too much with hairspray, because like using too much spray lacquer, it's going to start to make the dust run. And so what we're going to do is going to give this a good steam. And when you have done that, so we're going to, and then you moss over the green tape. Sorry, I just forgot the little bit of green tape. And then we're going to do a little bit of moss. Forgot this before. Now, if that happened to you and you obviously you steamed it, you just have to let it dry a little bit. But I'm going to then just do some moss green over the tape, just show you the stem here as well. All right, so you're going to do moss green over the green tape. And also where the brown meets the green, you're just going to use a little bit of brown. So almost you get that sort of integration of the colors, all right? So sort of you don't have the defined stripe now, the sort of brown goes into the green. So just going to put a little bit of brown. Just forgot that a little bit. As I said, this is all on your instructions. So, but as I said, sometimes that happens. You forget something. So all you do is come back to it and then let it dry and then redo that. All right, so then I'm going to give it a good steam. All right, so fairly decent steam here because we're not going to lacquer this. You want to set the colors. And you see here, you'll have your beautiful colors on your horse chestnut leaf, okay? So next we're going to do the buckeye and conker. Okay, so following your directions, first of all, we're going to remove the sponge pieces. Remember, this is hung upside down. We're then going to texture the floral tape. So we're just going to put a little bit of texture on that like we did. Remember, don't be too hard because you don't want to cut through the wire and decapitate your conker. Okay. And then what we're going to do is in your instructions, it says dust a little ruby highlight on the conker. So this is ruby, which is sort of obviously ruby red color. That's its name from the ruby stone. So I'm just, now remember, make sure you don't have hardly any color on your brush. And we're just going to put just a little bit of that onto there. Now you're going to get a little bit of, because we've got basically shortening or vegetable fat on the top of that to stop it sticking, just use a little bit of this red. And then you just need to make sure you wash this brush, use a little bit of dish soap on it because you potentially have got a little tiny bit of vegetable shortening on there. But it's just a little bit, it's just going to give it sort of that sort of nice, almost like a little slight highlight. But just put that just in there. But don't load too much color on the brush because you don't want to get that red in other areas. All right, but just wash that with a little bit of soap. And then we're going to take green. So we're going to come back to the moss green color. And this moss green, so I've already done 3 parts of this. So you can see, you're just literally going to dust this over the cream at the bottom. So where it's a little bit marbled. And you're just going to just gently brush this. Okay, don't load too much color on the brush, but you're just going to brush this over the green. And you're just going to brush this. This is going to be a slightly darker color. So you see that's going to give you the sort of going to fill in that area. Then you're going to move this out of the way. Next, we're going to take some pale chocolate. Now this is chocolate, and obviously this is chocolate with corn flour in it, which we've again used many times before with different projects. We'll be also using that pale chocolate on the when we do the poppy seed head as well. So I'm going to use just a little bit of the pale chocolate just around the bottom of this, just a little bit around the base here. Just be careful. All right, so just a little bit of brown just around the bottom part there. And then you take, this is going to be brown straight out of the container. Again, gonna not have too much color on the brush, and then you're just going to gently just brush from the top down, which means it's going to give like a little sort of bit of browny color on the spikes. Okay, so you see how you're going to get that little bit of brown color on your spikes there. Okay, now next step is going to be to steam this. All right, so we're going to steam this. Now again, the pod is dull, okay? Doesn't really have a natural luster on it, so, but obviously the actual seed, the conker, is shiny. You know, this one that's many years old, as you can see, is still obviously still shiny, all right? So that will be glazed. So what we're going to do here, we're going to rotate that, give it a good steam. Make sure you steam the bottom of that. Okay, and then what we're going to do is going to take some confectioner's glaze. Now, if you're doing this in air drying clay, you use the Sculpey. This is the satin glaze which we use on leaves, on foliage. So you can buy this in a gloss version, so you can get gloss glaze, but also you could use clear nail polish on air drying clay. And even, you know, I've had students ask, I mean, could you use air drying click on sugar? Could you use nail polish? Totally, because this is not something you can physically eat. I mean, obviously you wouldn't chomp your way through that. And of course it's got a foam ball in the middle of it and things. But as I said, if you, like I've had some, I know some of my videos using, for example, the confectioner's glaze to put pollen on. I've had some students in countries like in Africa and certain parts of Australia and that don't have access to these things. So, you know, I've suggested just use the clear nail polish. Then, so what we're going to do is just going to get in there and just try not to get the glaze on there, but just go down as far as you can get the brush, all right? Just to brush that on. So this will give your conker that nice look. And so you just literally just sort of brush that in. So just use a little brush to go into the sort of the side of that. And that will of course stay permanent because the vegetable fat shortening will be sort of make it shiny, but it won't be long term. But just don't load too much color or the glaze on the brush. And you see that will give you a nut. All right, and that's your conker in the shell. Next, we're going to move on to the conker out of the shell. So we're going to, in the instructions, we're going to add the 2 extra 20 gauge wires that you have left, taping with light green tape down, up and down texture. So you're going to add the 2 extra wires to this, and just going to put this on, slide that up to the bottom, go around it just a couple of times to get started. Again, you need to tape down about halfway down, because all of these will be put together in a sort of a spray. This will be the second one, and then down third time. We're going to texture this. We will be adding a little bit of color, but we'll do that on the stems of the conkers once we get everything put together. Okay. Now then, very much the same as we just have done on the conker in the shell, we take some ruby. And of course, when you're doing this, you can do the ruby on both of them. So I'm just going to put a little bit of ruby. Now remember, this one doesn't have the shortening, the fat on it, so I'm putting just a little bit of ruby here and just a little bit across the top here. So I'm just doing like a little highlight of ruby, but you don't want to get ruby on the cream, okay? So you can just do a couple of little highlights of the ruby, like almost like how you would do the coloring on an apple or pumpkin. So you've got a little bit of reddy color on there. And then we're going to take this color, and this is cappuccino color, so cappuccino dust, so like cappuccino coffee, and brown. So I'm going to use some cappuccino and brown and a little bit of vodka. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to use brown and cappuccino with a little vodka and sponge over the cream and paint around the edge with chocolate and vodka. All right, so I'm going to take just a little bit of vodka, and I'm going to mix a little bit of that together. So you're going to get sort of almost a mushroomy sort of color, okay? And I'm just going to use a piece of sponge. Sometimes we sponge with natural sea sponge because obviously it gives, like, when you want that sort of natural look, but this is just, you know, normal foam sponge. So I'm just going to use a little bit of that, not making it too wet. And if you want to, you can sort of try that on a napkin, so see how it looks. And we're going to use that, just put a little bit of that onto the top because they have this like little bit of a speckled look to them. All right, but not too heavy. And then I'm going to take, so then I just want some brown. So I'm just going to use some brown here. So I'm just going to make a little bit of brown. This is just brown, no cappuccino in this, so this is just a little bit darker. And I'm just going to go around the edge of the brown. So I'm doing this, so I just get the, you see how the brown just comes a little bit onto the edge? So you just use your brush, so you're actually almost brushing around the edge and onto the, so you get a little bit of like a brown line around there. All right. Remember, these are nail brushes. They're very nail art brushes. They're very inexpensive. They're not sort of real good quality, but they're nice fine brushes. So, you know, you can use them quite a few times. But what I like about them is they've got fairly short bristles on them, so they're good for spots and things like that. All right, so you're just going to put the brown around there. So you've just almost just sort of emphasized that here. All right, so that's going to give you, just going to get rid of those. And then once we have done that, we're going to then steam, or obviously spray with unscented hairspray with air drying clay and glaze. Then you're going to glaze the, obviously, conker, leaving the cream part unglazed. All right, so we just want the nut brown part is going to be glazed. I'm just going to just steam that. That really what that's doing is setting the red. And again, on air drying clay, you spray this. Remember, air drying clay replaces the steaming, because you don't use steam on air drying clay because it doesn't do anything. And so you see it'll look shiny, but of course that would diminish if you left that. And then we're going to take the glaze. Now, a couple of things with glaze. We spoke about this in some other projects as well, but like when you're using a little glaze, a lot of companies sell glaze in a bottle with a lid. This particular one is has a brush in it. But also remember, use just a disposable brush, or you have to clean this brush. Obviously, this has a brush attached to it, so you don't have to do that. But something you can do is when you're using colors, like, for example, you know, you're doing dark colors, like brushing over this has got red on, you can also just brush it on napkin, and that means you won't really contaminate the color into there. And then also the other thing you can do is if you take a little bit of Vaseline, it actually will work with vegetable fat or shortening as well, but like a little bit of Vaseline, you can put a little bit of Vaseline around the rim. That stops it sort of getting gummed up, okay? Because naturally when you put this brush back in, it's gonna, glaze is gonna go on the edge. So that will stop it getting stuck together. So you're gonna take now the glaze. I'm generally just brushing in one direction. But remember, I'm not going to put the glaze on the little seed. As I said, this can be done with clear nail polish or with a gloss craft varnish. Now, you could use the spray lacquer that we use on a lot of projects like the PME, or there are lots of other brands of spray lacquer. You could use those and then you let it dry for a few minutes and then give it a second coat, because if you do 2 sprays of lacquer, that will be comparable to confectioner's glaze. 1 spray will be comparable to leaf glaze, which is going to give you more of a dull look. So you see you have your 2. This is your, obviously, conker, and then the conker out of the shell. All right, so next I'm just going to show you putting those together, and then we're going to finish off the poppy seed head. So for assembly, we're going to start off by taking this about 25 millimeters, about 1 inch down the stem. All right, just bend that at a right angle. So you just bend that stem at an angle like that. And then in your checklist, we've got 3 18-gauge wires. So you place 3 18s, the half-length wires at the base there. It's going to go round just a couple of times with floral tape, just to secure the 18-gauge wires to that. We're going to take the buckeye out of the shell. What I'm going to do is just going to hold it with a pair of pliers at the bottom. Best to wait for this to dry, okay, and just bend it at a right, again a right angle like this. You see it sort of sits, because then it's not going to be really visible, the wire. And you're going to just, so that's just going to sort of sit and almost just sort of like sit elevated. So it's not actually sitting, not attached to the leaves, but it's sitting the top here. And then we're going to go around with your floral tape a couple of times with that. And then you're going to take the and again, just bend that a little bit at an angle, and so that can sort of sit in here. You see, so So what happens is you're going to have the sort of the spray like this. This will be a little bit like how they would if they were still on the tree. But usually they don't sort of split. The conkers, when they fall off, or obviously like as a child, you know, you go up the tree and shake them off or pick them off or whack them with a stick or things to make them drop off. So, but this is just sort of creates a nice natural spray. And then again, we're just going to be careful springing this around, but just going to go up and down a few times. This is with brown, okay? So you just need to go down just about 5 centimeters, 50 millimeters, about 2 inches down there. And then the end part of the wires here, this is going to go into the arrangement. So we can just do that as a single. We're going to do a sort of a fairly tall arrangement because we have grasses and things. Now the big leaf will probably move a little bit because it's not on such a strong wire. But those of you working with air drying clay, obviously it's a lot lighter. But that's quite normal when you're doing things like this, that the wires will move around a little bit, but once it's obviously in position, it's not going to go anywhere. So just taping down to the bottom here, like this. I would just texture a little bit with my wire cutters. This is not going to be visible, but I'm just texturing just again about 2 inches, about 5 centimeters down there. Now just sort of bend your leaves out of the way so you don't get sort of tape on those. And then you can just take a little bit of green and then a little bit of brown. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to just brush a little bit of the green dust just over the stem. Make sure your nail polish or whatever is dry, and then a little bit of brown will also go over there as well. So then where the green and brown, we're just going to, so you see how you're just using a little bit of chocolate brown. So where basically the 3 components come, you'll have a little bit of brown there over that area like that. All right, and just on the top of there. And then this will just be finally steamed again. And then obviously this will be the final steam in, so that will just sort of set the color. So you can put the conker there. Just got a little bit of area there, just seeing a little bit of cream. You know, sometimes happens when you have serrated, you sort of don't look at right angle. So if you can sort of see, you can just re-steam that if you need to. So then you can just, and then we just sort of re-steam over the stem like this. Okay, so here you have your beautiful, realistic horse chestnut, conkers, buckeyes, wherever you live. And obviously these will be ready to go into our arrangement. So the last thing we're going to do is just finish off the coloring on the poppy seed head. So for the poppy seed head, first of all, if you have any little gaps, this is how you fill them in. This would apply to air drying clay as well. So what you do is you take a little bit of your air drying clay, or in this case your sugar, left over from the poppy seed head, and all you do is put it onto a dish. You can do this straight on the table, and just spray a little bit of water, all right, and just mix this up with a little, so you're making, but you literally, as I said, that would be enough for doing this project. You need a little tiny amount. And you mix this up so it wants to be like a royal icing consistency. Now we're going to be doing this in, when we do the autumn cosmos, we'll be using this technique with air drying clay or your paste to do the leaves, because we're going to do the piped leaves. So anyway, you take that softened paste, and you do that before you do anything else. So you just take a little bit of the softened paste there, and so you have, if you've got any little gaps, you're just going to use that to fill in. And then you can just use your finger to smooth that off. So if you have any little, as I say, gaps there, or any little areas where you, like here, there's just a little tiny bit at the top, you can just use that technique to fill that up. And then generally you just leave, do the taping, and then you let that dry for a few minutes. All right, it doesn't take long to dry. And that's how you would fill in on things like pine cones. So whatever paste you've used to make the pine cones, which obviously could be modified sugar paste or fondant, or in this case, obviously flexi paste, gum paste, flour paste, you know, that, or as I said, air drying clay, that will be fine. Now we're going to use the technique. Now in obviously the video on making the poppy seed heads, you know, when we do the poppy heads here, obviously this is all done in green. When we're doing the dried seed head, we're going to do this in white. And so we're going to build up this natural part that it has on the poppy with floral tape. So we're going to use the floral tape here. So in your directions then, it says you're going to, so tape below the seed head 10 times using half width white tape. All right, so directly below the seed head, so directly below here, you're just gonna tape round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So really get that up as almost tight as you can get. All right, and then you move down the width of the tape. All right, so you're gonna move down. So you bring it down to about the width of the tape. You see, so you're just gonna go round and you're gonna bring it round. So basically the top of the tape is now at the bottom of that piece there, and you're gonna go round 40 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40. All right, so you see we built up that piece there to create a ring, and then pinch with pliers, then go around 3 times an up and down motion. So you don't have to break the tape off. So then you're going to use your pliers, and what I'm actually going to do is with your pliers, I'm squashing with the pliers to create almost like a ring. So you see how you're just going to create this with the 40. So you see you create that with the 40, and then you're going to go up and down 3 times. So what that does is sort of just almost a bit like a bandage going over the top of it. It's going to up, down, up, down. It's going to sort of smooth it where you pinch it with the pliers. All right, and then you're going to then go over 3 times and up and down, then tape down and up and down the length of the wire. So then what we're going to do is now going to come down to the bottom. So we're going to do the whole thing because we're making this tall arrangement when we put this all together. So we need quite a lot of length here, because when we make in some of the later parts, we're going to be making grasses, we're going to be making wild oats and quaking grass, and in honesty, they're going to sort of sit in the back, okay? And then just going to get a little bit more tape. If you need to break off more tape. And then when you take your tape, there we are. So with the tape, I've just got a little bit more tape here, and then the last time, it's going to make the stem naturally thicker. All right, so 3 times. Just come down to the bottom. You obviously can trim right at the base there. But leave everything fairly long, because depending on what type of container you use. And you can use the back of your scissors or your pliers, and this just sort of helps to smooth over the floral tape so you don't get so much of that sort of ribbon on here. Now of course on the green one, if you watch the video of the poppy, if you haven't watched that, on the green one I use, spray this with lacquer and then put green semolina on it. It gives you the fuzzy stem, but of course as a dried product this wouldn't have that on. So next we're going to move on to do the coloring on this. So for the poppy seed head, we're going to use some cappuccino color. We used obviously on the conkers. So you're just going to brush this all over to give you a base. And I'm also going to brush this over the stem as well. So you're just going to brush it over the white floral tape. You can just literally just lay that on a napkin and just brush over the top of it. All right, so it's going to give you that sort of base color, so you'll have that uniform color all over. And obviously I can go back in the container. And then we're going to take some pale chocolate. So I'm going to use some pale chocolate brown. And I'm going to just sort of brush that into the ribs. So where the ribs are, I'm going in between the ribs. So you're going to just sort of brush that into where each of the ribs is, in between the ribs. So you get almost that sort of highlight there. Just going to get a nice natural look on the seed head. And then you're going to brush around from the outside to the inside, around the top part there. Okay. You can just put a little bit of the brown, pale brown color at the bottom here. Just make sure that so you just brush those in, just to sort of emphasize that, sort of gives a nice natural look. You can put a little touch of that on the stem as well. So you're just going to rub your brush down. But remember, this has got quite a lot of corn flour in it, so it's not too dark. And you're just going to go around that part there as well, just to sort of almost highlight that. All right, and then just with a little bit, tiny amount of chocolate brown. That's going to be full strength chocolate brown. Again, get rid of the excess on the brush there. You're just going to go just around that top part there with the pale chocolate and then a darker chocolate. And that just sort of emphasizes that top piece, all right? So you get a nice coloring onto there. Now, once you have done that, you're going to take some of the brown and we're going to mix that with, so using the chocolate brown. Now, you can do this with gel color as well, but the brown color works really well for this. Now we're going to use a toothbrush. You know, just go to the dollar store, the pound store. This is just a toothbrush I keep for this purpose. All right, we're going to use this to sort of like flick the color onto the piece here. So you want to do this on a sort of a napkin, and I'm going to take a little bit of vodka in here. But we use this technique for splattering color. Remember, when we do pumpkins or fruit and things, we can use this technique. So you're just going to just sort of saturate this with your don't want to make it too wet, and then see how you're going to get that sort of effect. See, I'm just coming away from me. Again, you can put gloves on when you do this, but just rotate this. You can just do a little bit of that on the first part of the stem as well. Okay? So obviously it makes a little bit of a mess, but you can just wash that. And so you'll get that nice natural sort of the speckling on the seed pod. So the final part of the poppy seed head, once you splatter this, and remember, don't worry about if it's a little bit heavy splattering in parts, because they would be like that in real life. We're just going to steam that, and we're going to steam the stem, because remember, the dusting powder that you put on the stem will come off if you're, especially with the hands a little sticky. So obviously the steam will set that, and for air drying clay, you just would spray this all over and the stem with, obviously using unscented hairspray. And that will act as a fixative. All right, just so you see how I can go along here. I don't need to worry about the very bottom of this, but just obviously this main part here, and just steam that well, and that will emulate obviously the dried seed head. Now remember, this is quite bouncy. This is on, remember, 120 gauge wire and 222. If you wanted it firmer, but we want this nice natural organic look. So that's why but you could put you could use 3 20 gauge wires. So here you can see we have the finished horse chestnut, as I said, the buckeye conker in the shell, and the one out of the shell ready for arrangement. And here we have the poppy seed head. And those will be ready. Obviously, a few weeks' time, we'll be putting these all together in a magnificent arrangement, colors of autumn. And in the next episode, we're going to be making part 1 and part 2 of Chinese lanterns, which are an orange lantern with leaves. And then also we're going to be making the fall or autumn cosmos. Now, cosmos comes in pink and many colors, but I'm going to show you how to do one of the sort of autumn sort of colors, a yellowy-orange color. So beautiful flowers and berries, nuts, ready for our arrangement. So I hope you've enjoyed this second part of obviously the horse chestnut, or the buckeye as we call it in the US, and the dried poppy seed heads. Till next time, sweet wishes, bye!